Welcome. Today, we're going on a pretty amazing journey, one we see the end of all the time, but almost never the beginning. We're going to trace the path of wood, all the way from a single tree in the forest to the timber that builds our homes and furniture. It's a heck of a transformation.
I mean, have you ever really stopped and thought about it? That wooden table you eat at, that chair you're sitting on, it didn't just show up in a store. Its story started decades ago as a living, breathing part of a forest.
And it all starts right here. See, long before any saws are involved, the right tree has to be chosen. From this moment on, the whole process is this incredible blend of age-old wisdom and some seriously powerful technology.
So the first big step in this journey is actually harvesting the tree, what's called felling. And believe me, getting this part right is as much an art as it is a science.
You know, timing is absolutely everything. There's this perfect window. If you cut it too young, the wood's just too soft. But if you wait too long, it gets brittle, maybe even starts to rot. The sweet spot is late winter. And here's the really cool part. That's when the tree's sap is basically inactive. The tree's kind of hibernating. This means less moisture in the wood, which makes it way more stable and even helps keep bugs away later on.
Okay, so you've got the timing figured out. The next big question is, how are you actually going to cut this thing down? Because the tool you choose completely changes the game.
On the one hand, you've got the classic chainsaw. It gets the job done, it's versatile, but man is it dangerous, back-breaking work. Then you have the modern harvester. This thing is an absolute beast. It can cut down a tree, strip the branches, and slice it to length in just a few seconds, all while the operator sits safely inside a comfy cab. The catch? Well, it's incredibly expensive, and it's no good on super steep hills.
And this really shows you the difference in action. It's pretty stark, right? On one side, you have the pure skill and grit of a person with a chainsaw. On the other, the raw power and efficiency of a massive machine. The scale is just completely different.
All right, so the tree is down. Now what? Well, it doesn't just get thrown onto a truck. It has to be processed right there in the forest before it can head to the sawmill.
A kind of cleanup crew jumps in to handle three main steps: delimbing, topping, and debarking. Each of these is super important for turning that rough tree into a clean, uniform log that's ready for the mill.
First up is delimbing, which is pretty much what it sounds like. They get rid of all the branches. You need a nice, clean trunk so you can stack them, move them, and get them ready for sawing. And get this, in modern forestry, nothing goes to waste. It used to be that the top of the tree, where it gets too thin, was just left behind, but now that part is topped off and turned into useful stuff like fence posts. It's all about using every single part of the tree.
Okay, next up is debarking. And this one is a real race against the clock. If you leave the bark on, it traps moisture, which is like an open invitation for fungus and insects. That can lead to rot super fast. So that bark has to come off, and it has to come off now.
The old school way was to do this by hand with special axes. Can you just imagine the sheer amount of work it took to strip every single log clean like this? It's exhausting just thinking about it.
And today, an industrial debarker basically inhales the log, and in a matter of seconds, poof, it's perfectly clean. It uses a ring of spinning cutters to just peel that bark right off. The speed is absolutely unbelievable.
All right, let's head inside the sawmill. The clean logs have arrived, and this is where the magic happens. This is where they finally become the boards and planks we're all familiar with. So the log gets put on a carriage and is pushed through these gigantic bandsaws. And this isn't just random slicing. There's a skilled operator who's basically reading the log, figuring out the best way to cut it to get the most usable wood and work around any big knots or defects. They're turning this round log into clean, square pieces of lumber.
Here's a fun fact for you. What we call a piece of wood actually depends entirely on its dimensions. It's not random at all. For instance, a piece over 10 centimeters wide is called a plank if it's thick, but it's a board if it's thin. If it's narrow in both directions, then it's a strip. It's a whole little language based on simple geometry.
But hold on, the journey's not quite done. We've got lumber now, sure, but we have to remember what we're working with. This is a natural material, and it literally carries the story of its entire life inside of it.
We tend to call these features defects, but honestly, that's not always the best word. A lot of them are just natural parts of the wood's character. They really only become a problem if they make the wood tough to work with or if they were caused by a mistake during sawing or drying. Take knots, for instance. They're the most common defect you'll see. But really, every single knot is just the footprint of where a branch used to be. A live knot is solid because the branch was alive when the tree grew around it.
A dead knot might be loose because the branch had already died, and a rotten knot, that tells a story of an injury. They're like chapters from the tree's autobiography, just frozen in place.
And that natural history leads us to the final challenge, drying the wood. See, as water leaves the wood cells, the wood shrinks. But if it shrinks unevenly, maybe one side dries faster than the other, it can twist and turn into all sorts of shapes. It can warp into a spiral, cup up like a bowl, or bow from end to end. Controlling this drying process is the key to getting stable, usable timber.
So I want to leave you with this question. The next time you see a knot in a floorboard or a slight curve in the leg of a chair, are you going to see it as an imperfection? Or are you going to see it as its signature? A little reminder of the incredible long journey it took from a living tree in a forest to a part of your home. Something to think about. Thanks for watching.